The late afternoon light poured into the studio, golden and rich, catching dust motes in the air like sparks. Evelyn stood before the easel, brush in hand, her pulse racing. Clara watched her from across the room, leaning against a table strewn with half-cleaned palettes. "Again," Clara said softly. "Don't think. Just feel." Evelyn dragged the brush across the canvas, her strokes shaky, too careful. She sighed. "It looks nothing like yours." Clara crossed the room, moving with that same quiet confidence that always unstrung Evelyn. "Of course not. It's not supposed to." She came to stand behind her, close enough that Evelyn felt the warmth of her body even before she touched her. Clara's hand closed gently over hers, steadying it, guiding the line of color. Evelyn's breath caught. She should have stepped back, but she couldn't. She leaned into the heat instead, the scent of paint and turpentine and Clara filling her lungs. "Better," Clara murmured near her ear. Evelyn shivered. Her grip faltered, the brush dragging unevenly, but Clara only smiled. She didn't move away. Her hand lingered, sliding from Evelyn's fingers to her wrist, holding her steady. "You're trembling," Clara whispered. Evelyn tried, but the word caught in her throat. Clara turned her then, gently but firmly, until they faced each other. Their eyes locked, so close that Evelyn could see the flecks of gold in Clara's dark irises, the faint smudge of paint on her cheek. "You don't have to explain," Clara said, voice low. "I already know." And before Evelyn could think, Clara's mouth was on hers. It wasn't tentative. It was hungry, a kiss that stole the breath from Evelyn's chest, a kiss that demanded the truth she had buried for years. Evelyn gasped into it, her hands clutching Clara's paint-smeared shirt, and the world tilted. The brush clattered to the floor. The canvas loomed forgotten. Clara pressed her back against the edge of the table, lips tracing fire along her jaw, her throat. Evelyn's head fell back, her body alive with a need she had long ago convinced herself no longer existed. "Clara," she whispered, half a plea, half surrender. Clara's hands framed her face, gentle now, forcing her to meet her gaze. "Tell me to stop, and I will." But Evelyn couldn't. She shook her head, desperate, her lips parting in invitation. The second kiss was slower, deeper, filled with heat and reverence all at once. Evelyn melted into it, her hands sliding into Clara's hair, pulling her closer. Every nerve, every breath, every heartbeat was consumed in the rush of being wanted, of wanting in return. The studio seemed to disappear, leaving only the press of mouths, the scrape of teeth, the warmth of skin beneath fingertips. Evelyn had never felt so alive, like the wild thing inside her had finally broken free of the soil, stretching toward the sun. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Clara rested her forehead against hers. "There," she whispered. "Now you're painting honestly." Evelyn laughed shakily, tears stinging her eyes. She kissed her again, softer this time, the taste of paint and wine and freedom on her lips. And for the first time in years, she wasn't thinking of Daniel. The cork popped with a soft sigh, the red wine spilling into two mismatched glasses Clara had found at the back of her cupboard. The studio was darker now, the sun sinking, shadows stretching across the walls. A single oil lamp threw a golden glow over the canvases and over Clara's face, softening her into something almost unearthly. Evelyn sat on the worn sofa against the wall, glass in hand, her nerves sparking hotter than the wine in her throat. She couldn't stop replaying that kiss, the urgency, the hunger, the way her body had lit like dry tinder. Her lips still tingled, as if Clara's mouth had left them branded. Clara dropped onto the cushion beside her, close enough that their knees brushed. She swirled her glass lazily, eyes lingering on Evelyn. "You've got paint on your cheek." Evelyn reached up, embarrassed, but Clara leaned in first, brushing her thumb across her skin. Her touch lingered, warm and deliberate, and Evelyn froze, breath caught in her chest. "You missed it," Clara teased, her voice low. Evelyn laughed nervously, but the sound broke when Clara leaned closer, her lips grazing hers. The kiss started soft, coaxing, but soon deepened, turning urgent. Evelyn gasped into it, her hand finding Clara's thigh, gripping as though she might fall. The wine glass wobbled in her other hand. Clara plucked it away, setting both glasses on the floor without breaking the kiss. Then Clara's fingers slid to Evelyn's waist, pulling her closer until she was half in her lap. The world tilted. Heat bloomed everywhere Clara touched. Her hip, her side, the bare skin of her collarbone where Clara's lips pressed open-mouthed kisses. Evelyn's head fell back, a helpless sound escaping her throat. Clara! That single word carried both plea and fear. Clara paused, lips at her throat, her breath hot against Evelyn's pulse. Her hand skimmed lower, brushing the hem of Evelyn's dress. Evelyn trembled, torn between panic and desperate want. Clara's hand stilled. She lifted her head, searching Evelyn's eyes. "Tell me," she murmured, "is this what you want?" Evelyn's breath came ragged, chest rising and falling. She couldn't lie. Yes. God, yes. Clara kissed her again, harder this time, a groan rumbling in her chest. Evelyn clung to her, dizzy with the rush of sensation, the taste of wine and heat and need. Her body begged for more, for everything. Clara's fingers skimmed her thigh, sliding upward. Evelyn gasped, arching into the touch, and then suddenly the hand was gone. Evelyn blinked, dazed. Clara had pulled back, her chest heaving, her lips swollen from the kiss. She pressed her forehead against Evelyn's, eyes closed tight. "Not yet," Clara whispered, voice rough. "Not like this. I won't let your first time with me be blurred by guilt and half-choices." Frustration flared hot in Evelyn's chest, but it was tangled with gratitude, with awe. Clara wanted her, yes, but she wanted her whole. Evelyn exhaled, trembling, her hand sliding into Clara's hair. She kissed her once more, softer, almost reverent. "You make it impossible to breathe." Clara smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from Evelyn's face. "Good. Then you're finally alive." They sat there, tangled together on the couch, the untouched wine glowing in the lamplight. Two women balanced on the dangerous, exquisite edge of restraint. The rain had come suddenly that night, drumming steady against the roof of the studio. Evelyn slipped inside, drenched, her shawl clinging to her shoulders. She hadn't planned on coming, she had told herself she wouldn't, but her feet had carried her here, as though her body no longer belonged to her own will. Clara looked up from her canvas, surprise flashing across her face before softening into something warmer. She set her brush down, wiping her hands. "I thought I'd lost you tonight." Evelyn's throat tightened. She didn't answer, only stepped closer, water trailing from her hair onto the floorboards. Clara reached out, fingers brushing her wet cheek, and Evelyn collapsed into her touch like it was oxygen. The kiss began sharp, desperate, lips crashing together, teeth grazing, a muffled gasp between them. Evelyn clutched at Clara's shirt, pulling her close, soaked fabric sticking between their bodies. Clara responded in kind, her hands roaming, tugging Evelyn deeper into her orbit. The storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside Evelyn's chest. She moaned into Clara's mouth, the sound startling her, raw and unrestrained. Clara caught it, swallowed it, pressed her back against the wall. "God, I've thought of this all day," Clara murmured between kisses, her mouth hot at Evelyn's jaw, her throat. Evelyn tilted her head, offering more, shivering at the scrape of teeth against her skin. Her dress clung heavy from the rain, and Clara's hands slipped beneath the fabric at her waist, palms skating over damp skin. Evelyn gasped, her fingers twisting in Clara's hair. "Clara." It came out half a plea, half surrender. Clara's hand slid higher, over the curve of her hip, the flat of her stomach, brushing beneath the ribcage. Evelyn's whole body trembled. It was the first time anyone had touched her like this, with reverence and hunger all at once. Her breath came ragged. She pressed her thigh between Clara's, needing friction, desperate for more. Clara groaned against her lips, their hips grinding in an unsteady rhythm, bodies slick from rain and sweat. For one dizzying moment, Evelyn thought she would unravel right there, every nerve sparking, her body begging for release. Clara's hand slid up, fingers grazing the edge of her breast. And then it stopped. Clara froze, forehead pressed to Evelyn's, chest heaving. Her hand lingered, trembling, then slipped away. Evelyn whimpered at the loss, nails digging into Clara's shoulders. "Not yet," Clara whispered, voice rough, as though tearing the words out of herself. "If we go further, there's no turning back." Evelyn's lips parted, her eyes wide with need. She wanted to beg. She wanted to say please. But all she could do was nod, shaky, her body alight with fire that had nowhere to go. Clara kissed her again, gentler now, cupping her face in both hands. "Soon," she promised against her lips. "When it's only us. When it's everything." Evelyn's heart ached with longing. She leaned into her, savoring the last brush of lips, the warmth of Clara's body holding her against the storm. She knew then that chapter 8, whatever it would be, was inevitable. The rain had slowed by the time Evelyn left Clara's studio, but the air was thick and heavy, carrying the scent of wet earth. She walked quickly, her shawl clinging to her soaked dress, her lips still burning from Clara's kiss. Every step home felt unreal, as though she were drifting through a dream. Her body was trembling, not from cold, but from the memory of Clara's hands sliding beneath her dress, the press of her thigh between her legs, the dizzying promise of more. She slipped quietly into her house. Daniel snores a distant, muffled rhythm behind the bedroom door. Evelyn paused in the hallway, pressing her palm against the wall, her breath shaky. She couldn't bring herself to enter that room, not yet, not with his presence filling the air. Instead, she climbed the narrow stairs to the small attic room, the one she'd claimed as her own retreat. A single candle burned low on the table. Evelyn sat at its edge, her wet hair dripping onto her dress, her fingers lifting unconsciously to her lips. They still tingled. Swollen, tender, kissed into something unrecognizable. She closed her eyes and saw Clara again. The fierce hunger in her eyes, the warmth of her breath, the restraint that had pulled them apart when Evelyn had been ready to fall completely. A sound escaped her, half sigh, half groan. She pressed her face into her hands, torn between gratitude and frustration. Clara had saved her from a choice made too quickly, yet every nerve in her body screamed with denial. She lay down on the narrow cot, curling onto her side. The rain tapped against the window, soft and steady now, like Clara's voice had been when she whispered, "Not yet." Evelyn's chest ached with want, but underneath it pulsed something deeper. Certainty. She couldn't go back. Whatever this was, whatever she had begun, it was already hers. Across town, Clara sat alone in her studio. The lamp still burned, throwing long shadows across the canvases stacked against the walls. She leaned against the very spot where Evelyn's body had been pinned, head tilted back, eyes closed. Her lips still tasted of Evelyn. Her hand still remembered the curve of her waist, the sharp gasp when she'd touched bare skin. Clara cursed softly under her breath, dragging both hands through her hair. She wanted Evelyn, wanted her so badly it ached, but she wanted her completely. Not stolen moments, not in half-light, with guilt still clinging to her skin. Her gaze shifted to the canvas on the easel. It was unfinished, chaotic strokes of red and shadow, violent with longing. She picked up her brush, but her hand shook, unable to capture the moment. The paint bled, messy and raw, just like the storm inside her chest. She set the brush down again, leaned forward, closed her eyes. Soon, she promised herself. When she's ready. When there's no hesitation left between us. The rain whispered against the roof, keeping both women awake through the night, one restless on her cot, the other restless at her canvas. Both haunted, both hungry, both waiting for the moment when restraint would finally break. The morning after the storm dawned bright and merciless, but Evelyn hardly noticed. She had moved through her house like a ghost, Daniel's presence little more than background noise. His questions at breakfast went unanswered, his voice swallowed by the roaring in her own chest. By mid-afternoon, she could stand it no longer. She found herself walking the familiar path to Clara's studio, her pulse wild, her palms damp. She didn't knock this time. She pushed the door open, the smell of turpentine and oil paints rushing over her like an embrace. Clara was there, as always, bent over her canvas. She turned at the sound, surprise flickering into something else, a flare of heat that matched Evelyn's own. "Evelyn," she said, her voice low, cautious. But Evelyn didn't answer. She crossed the room in 3 strides, her hands catching Clara's face, her mouth claiming hers in a kiss that burned. Clara staggered back a step, caught by the force of it, then melted into her, groaning as if she'd been starving. There was no hesitation this time. Evelyn's body pressed flush against hers, her hands clutching at her paint-stained shirt, desperate, demanding. Clara's arms circled her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. "I can't," Evelyn whispered against her lips, breathless. "I can't stop thinking about you. I don't want to stop." Clara's eyes blazed, her hand sliding up Evelyn's spine. "Then don't." The kiss deepened, hungry and raw, mouths opening, tongues tangling. Evelyn's knees went weak, her body igniting everywhere Clara touched, the line of her waist, the curve of her hip, the swell of her breast. She moaned into Clara's mouth, helpless. They stumbled toward the worn sofa, lips never breaking. Clara pushed her down gently, following her, her body a warm weight against Evelyn's trembling form. Fingers traced beneath her dress, sliding over thighs, lingering at the hem of her stockings. Evelyn arched into the touch, desperate, a soft cry slipping free. "Please," she whispered, the words spilling from her without thought. Clara kissed her hard, her hand moving higher, over soft skin, claiming what she had denied herself before. Evelyn gasped, her back arching, her nails digging into Clara's shoulders. Heat surged through her, relentless, unstoppable. Clothes tangled, half torn, half shrugged aside. Every inch of bare skin met with lips, with hands, with reverence. Clara moved with both hunger and tenderness, mapping Evelyn's body as if it were a masterpiece long kept hidden. Evelyn writhed beneath her, every nerve alive, overwhelmed by a pleasure she had never known, not even in her marriage bed. When release came, it broke through her like a flood, shattering and remaking her in the same breath. She cried out Clara's name, the sound filling the studio, raw and unashamed. Clara held her close through it, kissing her temple, her cheek, her lips. "There," she whispered, voice rough with her own desire. "You're free now." Evelyn clung to her, tears burning her eyes, her chest heaving. For the first time in years she felt truly alive. Not just a wife, not just a shadow moving through days, but a woman undone, remade, claimed by desire she had once thought forbidden. When Clara finally sank beside her, both of them breathless and flushed, Evelyn turned, pressing her forehead against hers. "There's no going back now." Clara smiled faintly, her hand brushing Evelyn's cheek. "Good. I don't want to." The storm was over, but inside them both, the fire had only just begun. Evelyn told herself she wouldn't go. She told herself she would stay home, keep her head down, be the wife she was meant to be. But as the days passed after that night, her body betrayed her. She found her feet turning toward Clara's studio as if pulled by invisible strings, her pulse racing before she even reached the door. "Afternoon, Mrs. Harper," the shopkeeper had said when she passed by, arms wrapped around a bundle of cloth she pretended to buy. Evelyn forced a smile, heat creeping up her neck. Did he notice the flush in her cheeks? Did he know where she was going? By the time she slipped into the studio, her breath was shallow, her chest tight. Clara stood waiting, paintbrush in hand, though her canvas bore only a half-finished sketch. The moment their eyes met, the brush clattered to the floor. "You came," Clara said, relief and hunger in her voice. Evelyn crossed the room before she could answer, pressing her lips to Clara's in a kiss that stole every word. It was urgent, reckless, the taste of need sweet on her tongue. Clara groaned softly, hands finding Evelyn's waist, pulling her flush against her. The door wasn't even locked. The thought thrilled and terrified Evelyn in equal measure. She pulled Clara deeper into the room, shutting them away from the street's gaze. Their mouths collided again, hungrier this time, teeth grazing, hands greedy. Clara's fingers slipped beneath the collar of Evelyn's dress, tracing hot patterns along her skin. Evelyn shuddered, gripping Clara's shoulders, her own hands trembling as they wandered lower, bolder than before. Every stolen touch was a gamble, but the danger only stoked the fire. Someone might. Evelyn gasped between kisses, though her body pressed harder against Clara's. "Let them," Clara murmured, her lips trailing along Evelyn's jaw, her hand skimming lower, teasing the curve of her thigh. Evelyn moaned softly, the sound muffled against Clara's neck. She knew she should stop, should pull away, but every nerve screamed for more. Her lips found Clara's again, desperate, as if time itself would collapse if she let go. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Evelyn's face burned crimson. She pressed her forehead to Clara's, eyes closed, her chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. "I can't stay away," she whispered, raw and trembling. Clara cupped her face, her thumb brushing over her swollen lips. "Then don't." They sank into another kiss, slower now, but no less consuming. The studio smelled of oil and turpentine, but all Evelyn could taste was Clara, the sweetness, the salt, the promise of something she could no longer deny. When she finally slipped away that evening, her shawl pulled tightly around her shoulders, Evelyn swore she could feel the whole town's eyes on her. But the warmth of Clara's touch lingered beneath her skin, burning bright, a flame she no longer wanted to extinguish.